What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again, it's Brian Twining. Brian, we got football. We got football tonight. We're recording this Thursday night, pre-Kansas City Chiefs, Houston Texans, Week 1, opening night. I couldn't be more excited.
If you can't see the big smile on my face, I am extremely excited. And just to preface that, I have family visiting right now, and it was understood prior to the visitation that tonight was football night.
And for those of you that can't see because you're listening on Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify, come hang out on YouTube. We post all of our podcasts there. We will also be live every Sunday morning from 11 to 12 Eastern time, 8 to 9 for those of you West Coasters. Brian and I will be up bright and early. We'll be taking your betting questions, taking your start-sit questions, taking your eliminator questions, whatever you want to talk about. We are here to get you set for each and every week. Every Sunday morning. So come give us questions, give us content, and we'll be happy to provide our educated guesses. But Brian, today we are talking some betting, some NFL Week 1 bets. We got 4 games I want to rip through, and then we'll talk about our kind of best of the rest, and then we'll give you guys our best bet for Week 1. So Brian and I are going to do this it'll hit your podcast feed every Friday, and so if you have specific questions for each week, don't hesitate to hit us up. You can see our Twitter handles on the YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, at NotoriousKRO, at Greasy Rules 14, follow us, send us questions. We're happy to break them down on the pod. But Brian, without further ado, let's jump into Week 1 and let's talk the game that everybody's all about: the Carolina Panthers versus the Oakland Raiders. Or I guess no, they're not the Oakland
Raiders. we're gonna have this problem this year. It's going to be the same as with the Chargers, my friend.
These are the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's fix that for everyone watching at home.
They may be the Las Vegas Raiders, but with the mentality of the Oakland Raiders.
But let's talk about this game because I think there's a lot of interesting kind of angles. And when I saw the lines, this one really jumped out to me. I've already bet Carolina +3. I think the wrong team is favored. I understand that, there's a lot of questions about what the Panthers defense is. It was bad last year, and they lost Luke Kuechly, and they lost James Bradbury, and they lost, they're a lot of questions, but they also have stability at the quarterback position in Teddy Bridgewater. They brought in Joe Brady to run the show. This offense should be really good, and as good as the Raiders offense might be, sort of, they're a West Coast team traveling east. They both have huge questions on the defensive side of the ball. They both have interesting kind of plot holes at their head coach position. Am I crazy for being on the Panthers in this game?
No, not at all. I think this is one of those games that people are going to be extremely surprised at what the result is. I mean, if you look at both of these teams, both of them struggle to defend the pass. Both of them are not the greatest on defense. But I think the thing that people are forgetting is that even though Carolina is starting a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, they have the most continuity of these two teams. Derek Carr's targets, he's got Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow returning. And then the two starting wide receivers are both rookies. So they've only had this minimal training camp to get accustomed to what the Raiders are going to be running on offense. And Carolina, with Joe Brady there, they have an identity, and that is Christian McCaffrey, and that's not going to change. And, for a West Coast team to be traveling east, if anybody is familiar with betting, that is traditionally like a death sentence for a team that's traveling from the West to the East Coast. And normally they don't perform well, especially this being Week 1. It's first live action that we're going to see. I really think that the stability of having Bridgewater back there, who won't be making the same kind of mistakes that Kyle Allen and Will Grier were last year, is going to pay huge dividends for this Panthers team. And like we've talked about Teddy Bridgewater before on our like sleeping podcasts, he's going to surprise some people as well. Like this team is going to be throwing the ball a ton, and the Raiders, for everything they do badly, pass defense is one of their worst.
Yeah. No, I'm very interested to actually watch this game because obviously as fantasy outlooks, we want to watch a lot of. We want to see if Josh Jacobs is going to get the volume. We want to see what that passing offense looks like. Can Curtis Samuel be a PPR asset that I think he can? How does Robbie Anderson fit? Ian Thomas, breakout tight end. I think there's a lot to get into. I think there's a lot. You kind of wanted to hit on the total because I'm trying to figure out kind of week one in general. Like this is the total in terms of what I would normally do in an average week may feel a little low, but I also wonder, like, okay, there's no preseason. They've really just practiced. Do we expect these offenses to be clicking on all cylinders? Or maybe the fact that the defense hasn't understood the scheme and kind of gone through some transitions might lead to some more big plays. And then actually the offense is going to be the ones benefiting from all the lack of actual playing time. So I guess where does your head come at in terms of week one totals?
So I think it's really going to be team dependent. I mean, you're going to have teams like Dallas and Green Bay and Kansas City tonight who, they're basically returning all the pieces on offense where they're not going to see any hitches in what they're doing. Even in Dallas's case, they got a brand new head coach. They still have the same offensive coordinator. In terms of the Raiders and the Panthers, I think the Panthers are going to be surprisingly good out of the gate because of the kind of offense they're going to be running. It's going to be pass heavy, but it's going to be a lot of quick, first read type passes, which is limiting the amount of pressure that Teddy Bridgewater is going to see. It's going to be hitting an open guy. Whereas you look at the Raiders and Derek Carr, he was, one of the tops in terms of what his yards per attempt were. And if he's got two rookies out there and he's having to rely on them to get open or his offensive line to protect for him, and the fact that Carr doesn't like throwing into tight windows, that kind of leads into the guy who I'm really interested in watching this weekend for the Raiders, and that's Hunter Renfrow, because he and Darren Waller, I think, are going to be extremely Derek Carr is going to depend on those two guys a lot over the first few games of the season because of the kind of routes that they run and his familiarity with them and the way that they can create space in the open. And I think this game gets out to a start where we see Carolina maybe jump out to a lead and then the Raiders not be able to do what they want to do in terms of running the ball with Jacobs and have to air it out a lot more.
Yeah, and I think your Waller call is actually a really good one because, there was a lot of, okay, well, Tyrell Williams is done for the year, and what are the Raiders doing wide receiver? And they brought in, Lynn Bowden's now been traded, but then they still brought in Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards and Nelson Aguilar. And I think this is a great sign for anyone that owns Darren Waller because I feel like he's going to be the focus of the offense and get pelted with targets once again. I'm hopeful Josh Jacobs can be a pass catcher. But we'll see. We'll see what John Gruden ends up doing. Let's keep it flowing. Let's keep it going. We'll stay with another Bay Area team, and we'll talk the Arizona Cardinals at San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be an interesting game. Obviously, the Cardinals, year two of Cliff Kingsbury, year two of Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins is now there to go with Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. They still have Kenyon Drake, who they brought in last season. There's a lot of excitement around this offense. Where's your head leading, initially on this game?
So this game, I'm looking at the line here. It's currently sitting at 7 on most sports books, and in a game where combined, the Cardinals lost by 13 points to these 49ers last year. With both times, they were single-digit games the entirety of the game, with San Francisco scoring near the end in their finale last year. And
as somebody who had the Niners in that game where they got the miraculous fumble touchdown that probably shouldn't have counted, but ended up counting. I appreciate the Cardinals
Yeah.
for that one.
Yeah, and for everything that Arizona did on offense with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, I think that's going to be huge for that offense, and I think their red zone efficiency is where you're going to see the biggest improvement in for the Cardinals, and you're going to see them put a lot more points on the board this year. But I'm looking at Arizona's defense, which was bottom half last year. They weren't that great. They went out, they took do everything Isaiah Simmons, which I think is going to be a huge addition to that defense, where he's going to be roaming near the line of scrimmage. They're going to be forcing this 49ers offense to get into their pass game, which is to the benefit of Arizona's defense with Chandler Jones and Simmons probably rushing the quarterback there. And I think this game is close for the majority of the time.
I'm going to push back real hard. The Niners win this game comfortably. I'm thinking like double digits. I think the second time around is going to be that game that you're describing, and I think a lot's going to get better for the Cardinals as the season rolls along. But this is a Niners team that obviously went to the Super Bowl last year, but has their pieces. Obviously, they sent Eric Armstead DeForest Buckner to Indy, replaced him with Javon Kinlaw, still have a ton of studs. They're getting back a lot of those linebackers that they lost kind of as the season went along and weren't able to really be factors. Obviously, the Niners secondary is pathetic and was picked on and was a huge problem last year. But if their front seven can create the pressure, Nick Bosa can do what he does, I think they'll be fine, at least for this game. But yeah, I think this is an offense that figures it out. I think, we've already heard Kenyon Drake's a little banged up. We'll see. I'm expecting him to play and probably play okay. I'm not, we talked about it during the preseason. We're not as optimistic about him as a borderline first, second round pick. But I think this line is Arizona's getting a lot of excitement. Everyone's really excited about them. They have so much. There have been the news with Hopkins and here's a 7, lay it, and the Niners win by double digits.
I will add to that point that as long as it's 7 or more, I like Arizona. But if we're creeping into that 6.5 range, give me San Francisco all day with the touchdown.
Yeah,
laying the 6.5.
Yeah, and you can shop it. Like there's a lot of places where you can shop it. We're using FTN bets for a lot of our information in terms of lines and stuff because it just shows you a bunch of different ones. But yeah, there's DraftKings has a 6.5, FanDuel has a 6.5, other places have a 7. So you really want to shop around. You want to find the best number because, like personally, I'd rather get 7 with the Niners if it gives me a better number than take 6.5 minus 115, minus 120, 125, whatever it happens to be. So let's talk about your boys, the Dallas Cowboys at Los Angeles Rams. This is the Sunday night game. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. And Brian's already stressed out about how this game's going to go.
You better believe it.
The only other game I've bet this week is the Los Angeles Rams +3 at home. Once again, the wrong team is favored.
Yeah, I completely agree with you again. The last time these teams played in LA, the LA defense just absolutely dominated Dallas the majority of the game, and they stifled Ezekiel Elliott for the majority of the game. They were able to limit Dak Prescott's success down the field. I think with the Cowboys offense, very similarly to the way Arizona is being talked up right now, people are just expecting too much out of CeeDee Lamb, and they're expecting them to be the 2017 Patriots or the Denver team where, Peyton Manning threw for 50 touchdowns immediately. And as much as I see Dak putting up those numbers this year, considering I like him as a top 3 quarterback in fantasy, this Rams team is being so undervalued right now, as even though they have issues at running back, their offensive line is still, kind of questionable. They're going to be younger. They're healthy right now. And them too on offense, like against the Cowboys defense who lost Byron Jones, their best cover corner. So they're going to have some issues defending against these Rams wide receivers all day and their 2 tight ends, which traditionally the Cowboys suck against quick tight ends and teams that like to target them down the field. So the Rams getting 3 at home is something that I'm also on pretty heavily this week.
Yeah. And in terms of the total, I'm a big fan of, I think there's going to be a lot of points in terms of pace. Both these teams are going to want to move the ball. They're going to want to push. They're going to want to utilize that passing game. Obviously, I've sang the praises of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff. And I think Michael Gallup's actually an incredibly interesting play this week. I think he has a monster game here. As you mentioned, the CeeDee Lamb hype train's rolling, and I think he's going to be in a great player eventually and get his foothold in this offense eventually. But I think Amari Cooper, as long as Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup are both healthy and playing, I think they're going to be the top 2 options. I think Michael Gallup has a monster game here.
This is a game right here that for those unfamiliar with this term, I would actually bet this as a pleaser bet, which means that I'd be laying an extra 6 points. So I would be taking the Rams -3 with triple the juice. So I'm getting quadruple odds here. If I like the Rams with the 3 points and to then potentially win, even as a Cowboys fan, I'll lay that 3 and get a 4-1 payout.
Yep. And in this game, if you're looking at the line, you're I don't feel great either way. Team totals are a great way to go, especially if you feel good about one of the offenses. I'm looking on DraftKings Sportsbook, and the Rams over 24.5 -105. I love that. I think they scored 27 points easy.
I think both of these teams are approaching 30 and probably eclipsing 30 this week.
So if you're looking, obviously we're going to try and give you guys some wiggle room in terms of where we would take the line. 24.5 is a no-brainer. I'd probably take it up to 26. If we're getting into 27 or more, that would be probably too aggressive for me. But the way the juice is on this bet, a lot of people seem to be leaning under. So I will be happy to, if I can get under 24 or I can get exactly 24, I'm going to be much more excited. But at 24.5 -105, that's something I absolutely love. I think Jared Goff throws for at least 3 touchdowns here. Add in another field goal, add in a running, a running game. Jared Goff, I'm playing in fantasy lineups. I'm my DFS lineups. I'm all over this game in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it, especially as you were talking about before even mentioning this game. If you're looking at pace of play stats, both these teams I think are in the top 10 in the NFL in terms of pace of play. The Cowboys were top 3 in terms of pass attempts, pass yards. I think they were second or first in the NFL. So they like to go down the field. We know what the Rams like to do with their most of the time intermediate to deep routes. This is not going to be a dink and dunk game. This is going to be, we're trying to get first downs on first down type of game. And I like both of them to eclipse their team totals currently, no matter what the public is betting on right now.
Yeah. I mean, per Derek Brown of FTN Bets, the Cowboys and Rams are the only game that features 2 teams in the top 3 in both neutral and negative game scripts. So if one team is down, they're going to chuck the shit out of the ball. If it's a close game, they're going to chuck the shit out of the ball. Yeah. So obviously we've been talking about these 2 offenses, and obviously I want to watch what's the running game going to look like for the Rams. But Jared Goff is so due for regression. I mean, I think he starts big in week 1. I think he has a monster season. I'm taking the Rams in this game. I'm taking the team total over. I'm gonna find a few ways to target this game because I feel really good about how this is going to turn out. So it's probably going to be a 6-9 game, and it'd be a field goal fest just to mess with my head. But I think it's a great way to look this week. Let's talk about the second game you wanted to hit on. That's the Chargers of Los Angeles. Yes, the Los Angeles. I didn't say San Diego.
Good.
Heading to Cincinnati to take on the Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati Bengals. Where's your head at for this one?
This is a game I'm looking at the road team here. Again, this is a West Coast team going east, but I've been kind of tooting the horn for the Chargers as being one of those under talked about teams. Even with the injury to Derwin James, this defense is still going to wreak havoc on offensive lines and quarterbacks. and they get a rookie quarterback, the number 1 pick, Joe Burrow in week 1, and for all the weapons that he has on the outside, I really think this could be his like, here's welcome to the NFL moment with both, Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram coming off the outside, probably greeting him early and often. And I like the Bengals to, their team total, I think, is currently sitting at around like 20 or 19. Give me the under all the way down to even like 16 and a half for the Bengals team total. I just don't think they're going to be able to move the ball against the Chargers defense this week. And real quick, before I end this game, that's not to mention that the Chargers are probably going to be one of the slowest paced teams in the NFL this year with Tyrod Taylor and the way that they're going to want to run the ball. I do not see them playing the same style they did with Phillip. I like them to milk the clock with Tyrod Taylor, a lot of RPOs, and a lot of time of possession in order for them to win these games.
I'm really curious to watch this game. Like, I think I want to see what Joe Burrow and company look like, because I think that offense could be really fun. You might be right. This might be a week where the Bengals just kind of struggle, and it's just a slow move, and it might take them. We've seen rookie quarterbacks come into the NFL, and they just don't quite hit like maybe we want them to hit. And obviously, as the season rolls along, I'm curious about the offense. So obviously, it seems like no Mike Williams this week, but Hunter Henry's there, Keenan Allen's there, Austin Eckler's there. We'll see who the other guy is, whether it's Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm a little more optimistic about what the Bengals can be, because on initial look, I like Cincinnati a lot in this spot. I feel like. But, I'm looking, when I was making my lines, I had the Chargers like 2.5. So I'm probably just going to sit back and watch this one. And I would recommend, as exciting as they having all these games are, and the ability to bet on all this stuff, like, try and limit yourself. Don't blow your whole bankroll in week 1.
Yeah. Let's not get too excited.
Because it's really easy to do. And I like this, and I like this, and I like this. And then your bankroll is gone, and then you're redepositing in week 2. And it's not a good feeling. So highly, highly recommend pacing yourself. But, go nuts if you want to go nuts. I'm not telling you what to do. Let's talk about the best of the rest. There's a couple games that stand out to me, and I want to just kind of get your thoughts. The Washington football team, +6. This feels like a game either like the Eagles just kind of slum along for 3.5 quarters, and then end up winning. I really wish I could get 7, and there's probably a reason why it's at 6. But like,
I think the line has a lot to do with the fact that Philly has had a lot of issues closing out games and finishing off bad teams, as saw last year against the same Washington team, where they just couldn't they couldn't put the hammer to the nail against them, and they let them back into the game. And it happens time and time again in this divisional rivalry, and I think that's why the line is sitting there as it is. But to me, I think the value is taking Philly in this game, even with all the injuries on the offensive side of the ball as far as the receivers go. Yeah. If they can get any sort of competent cornerback play, and like their defensive line is still elite, they're going to put a lot of pressure on Dwayne Haskins. Washington is still – they have no idea what they're doing at the running back position. I mean, they're talking about J.D. McKissick. He's listed as the starter right now, which we all know that's bull caca. But I like Philly in that game.
I expect Dwayne Haskins to take a huge step forward this year. I think Terry McLaurin's going to be a beast. I think we do see Antonio Gibson. Steven Sims Jr. is interesting. But it's really that defense. Like, they have Chase Young, Jonathan Allen. They're a team that's figuring stuff out. Their secondary is getting better. They have Landon Collins, who they got from the Giants last year. Like, that is a good side of the football. And as you mentioned, this is a team that's like the Eagles struggled out of the gate. I could see us sitting there. Let's go to like Scott Hansen's like, let's go to Washington, where the football team is about to score their 3rd touchdown of the first half, taking a commanding 21-3 lead. Like, I could.
If anybody is going to allow that, that's the Eagles for sure.
Yes, and maybe the Eagles come back and win. But if I was forced to bet this, and I may still, because I do like Washington quite a bit, I would definitely take the points, but it is close. Is there any other lines that of games that we haven't talked about that either just kind of interest you or kind of jump off the page?
So one of the ones that is one of my favorite games of the week, and that's the Browns at the Ravens. It's currently sitting at a touchdown over under at 48. I'm as good as Baltimore was last year. There was definitely some issues towards the end there in the playoffs. And Cleveland is one of those teams that there's a lot of people talking about how they could be that team in that division that takes the step up. If we see Baker Mayfield improve his play, if Odell Beckham was really injured last season and he was still able to produce the way he did, what are they going to look like with him fully healthy? They now have 2 tight ends that are legit receiving threats in David Njoku and Austin Hooper. They have a 2-headed monster out of the backfield. And for as good as Baltimore's defense is, they're going to be starting a rookie in Patrick Queen back there at linebacker who, for as good as he is, who knows? I don't know if he's ready for Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb running down his throat and one splitting out wide getting receptions. Like I like Cleveland with the points at a touchdown. I think this game is another one of those surprisingly close ones. We even saw Cleveland smash Baltimore last year in one of their meetings where they just absolutely obliterated them.
Yeah.
And so there's already proof that these two teams can play on even level. And Cleveland, if they're going to take that step up, it's going to have to start in week 1 against Baltimore.
The first 4 weeks of the season are always wild. Like there's always situations that we look back and be just like, what? Like last year, the Bengals were favored over the San Francisco 49ers in week 2. The Niners went to Washington as a 3-point underdog.
That's fantastic.
Kicked the crap out of them, and obviously on their way to the Super Bowl. So there's some games that I'm like, that game is really interesting because I think it could be either the Browns keep it real close, or the Ravens blow them out, and we go, okay, the Browns are who we thought they were. There's a few, like in Indy and Jacksonville is another one that I'm really curious about. I think Jacksonville isn't very good, but I think 8 points might be a little aggressive.
That's really aggressive for week
I really
1.
like taking some of I think I wouldn't, if it was Baltimore -7, which it is currently at PointsBet. I'm not touching the Browns. But if I can get 7.5 or 8, I'm definitely interested in that. I'm definitely interested in 8 points with Jacksonville. The one line that really interests me is the Saints at home -3.5. I feel like there's a lot, everybody's.
I'm so glad you mentioned that game. Everybody is all over Tampa right now.
Mm-hmm. Fournette and meanwhile the old Saints are just sitting at home doing their thing. Alvin Kamara's ready to roll. Michael Thomas, Drew Brees,
Emmanuel Sanders is now added to the mix on the outside.
Jared Cook, yeah.
I feel like this is one of those trap plays for public bettors and for new people that are getting into gambling. Like, oh man, I'm getting 3.5 with Tampa Bay. I'm laying that line all weekend, all the way up to 5.
Yeah.
Like even 6, I think I'd probably lay that with New Orleans because people forget that defense is legit.
If you have a friend who's in your like fantasy leagues or just a hot take guy, but like shows up to the draft with like a magazine and is like super into like the headlines and I was watching ESPN. Did you hear Tom Brady's a Buccaneer? It's wild. They're going to be really good. They're definitely going to the Super Bowl. If you have one of those friends, just gauge their interest or their thoughts on who's going to be the lock this week and just fade them. And like, I guarantee you that will work out really well for you. I feel like Tampa is one of those teams that, anytime there's a bunch of additions and a bunch of moves and here comes this hot team, I think it's a good market. Let's talk Falcons Seahawks. I think this is another game that I'm gonna figure out how to attack it. The lines moved a little bit. The Falcons are +2, +2.5. We were talking about it before the show, but like, there's obviously like in terms of both offenses, there's a lot to like. There's a lot of fantasy relevant options. but like I feel like the Falcons, like as bad as they were last year, like they're one of those teams that I think could flip the switch and be really good, or just or be awful on defense. But like they made strides. I think they're a better team. And I'm like looking at their team total because I think that could be an interesting spot. Their team total is 23.5. I think I like the over. I think they score 24 to 27 points pretty easily this week.
I was just
and maybe that's not enough to win. Maybe there's a late Seattle field goal. But yeah, I'd feel really good about taking that over.
Yeah, I'm on Bovada right now, and you're actually getting plus 120 for team total 24.5 for Atlanta. And even that I'm probably betting because I can see this game. Both of these teams very similarly to the way Dallas and LA like to operate. They produce big chunk plays in the passing game. They don't dink and dunk down the field, so there's big play opportunities there. The addition of Todd Gurley to that Atlanta offense gives them a viable running back option who people are now going to have to scheme against, because Todd Gurley did show signs of being his old self with the Rams last year. And, even though there was talk that his knees were just, dwindling down and he's not the same guy, maybe that was due to the fact that the Rams just didn't want to abuse him, wanting him for the end of the season run. And that's one of the biggest storylines to me going into this season. And both of these teams suck defending the pass. So if we're looking at team totals here, they both suck at defending the pass. They both like to produce big pass plays. They're not just throwing short routes. To me, that's just implied that this is going to be an up and down style game.
Yeah, and there's 3 games that have a 49.5 over under this week. It's Cowboys Rams, it's Falcons Seahawks, and it's Tampa and New Orleans. Like the 3 highest outside of obviously Thursday night game with Kansas City and Houston. Okay, I think we covered pretty much everything. Is there any other games you want to mention before we hit our best bets?
Let me just say I love Buffalo.
I think that's the right side.
They're my eliminator pick this week, which is probably they're going to be the heaviest one. But
yeah, I'm curious to see. I think Baltimore could be interesting. Just because their line, I think Indy could be interesting, but like in terms of eliminator, I hate taking teams on the road.
Yeah, that's
weird stuff happens. So like
it's a death trap.
I could see Philly being popular. I could see Indy being popular.
I noticed Pittsburgh was extremely popular, but as good as we think they're going to be, and as much as I think they're going to win the division, opening on the road against an upcoming Giants team is not something I want to touch in terms of eliminators. So
yeah, I think it might be a little early to use them, but I like the Niners. I think that would be my pick. Okay, so let's
go Cardinals.
Let's jump in and let's hit them, Brian. What is your week 1 best bet? What's your week 1 best bet?
So for me, I'm gonna take New Orleans minus 3.5. I know this is probably contrarian to what the public is thinking. They love themselves, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I myself love Tom Brady this year, as I predicted him to finish top 3 in fantasy scoring, which I still think is possible, even if they get smashed this game. Just the combination of a good defense in New Orleans, that offense is just going to be better, just more efficient. They're going to dominate Tampa Bay. Mike Evans is already dealing with a hamstring injury, which takes away their down the field, their deep threat for the Bucs. I think the first game of the year is going to be tough sledding for the Buccaneers.
I like that call. I mentioned a few things throughout the show, but if for my best bet, I'm taking the LA Rams team total over 24.5, which is currently minus 105 over DraftKings Sportsbook. If you can find a better number on your sportsbook of choice, I say go with that. I like anything up to 26. After that, I'm probably fading it a little bit just because these numbers are so tight, and you really want to find that value, because if you're not, no point. Like even if you think they can score 30, betting it at 27 is you're really shortening the window. And you're not. You really those half points, those full points can really make a difference. So, I'm taking the I'm taking the Rams. Brian's taking the Saints. He said he'd take it up to what, 6?
Yeah, up to 6. Yeah.
Yeah, Saints -6. So anything under a touchdown on the Saints, I think I'm with you. I think the Saints win. I think it's pretty an impressive win. Brian, this was fun. As we mentioned, we will be here on Sunday morning. Come, bring your betting questions. Bring your start sit questions. Tell us why we're idiots. We don't care. We're here to talk. We'll be live for an hour, 11 to 12 Eastern, 8 to 9 Pacific. And enjoy a week 1 of NFL football. It's here, Brian.
Thank goodness.
It's crazy. We'll talk to you guys next time.